So we're so glad to have them on. I want to say thank you before we start to everyone at TPPF who has brought this production together and got you all your lunch, and thank you all for coming.
Yes.
And I think that you know, because we were going to make it a surprise, but then it wasn't a surprise because we put out a big tweet. But our special guest today is the Honorable State Senator Paul Bettencourt, representing Senate District 7, the only Republican, urban Republican I think we've got in the Senate out of Houston. There's several things that you need to know about Senator Bettencourt. He is the chairman of the Higher Education Committee. He is the chairman of the Local Government Committee. I don't think anybody challenges the fact that he knows more about property taxes than anybody in the state of Texas. He is also the funniest guy in the legislature, so that's why we're glad to have him today. Senator Bettencourt, if you'll join us up here.
All right, there we go. Thanks, Ed. Now I just have to live up to it.
Yep. Well, we're pretty funny ourselves, so there will be a challenge. But I thought we should start, if you guys saw this morning, we always get these new job numbers out for the last month.
Oh, yes.
And they were so good. The prediction was that there would be, the economy's in bad shape. There would only be about 80,000 new jobs. Instead, there were 172,000 new jobs in the U.S. And as we know, Senator, I'll start with you. As we know, a lot of those jobs, and I don't mean like 20%, a big chunk of those jobs are created in Texas. So this is hats off to us. We know it. Trump knows it. How does that look to you, Senator, in terms of, we hear so much about affordability, so much about where the economy is, but this is better than expected.
You know, Sherry, I just love it. It's beautiful when we get these numbers. It's so beautiful because, that represents a lot of gold coming into Texas because people are gold and this modern technology, they're gold. That's what you need. On a serious point, what's interesting about the job numbers is that they're exactly opposite to consumer sentiment, okay? So here's what we're dealing with. We have an economy that's actually going well and actually roaring along in some sectors, so it's roaring along like this. But consumer sentiment is this way because 3 months ago we had hit 47%, then they're at 43%. These are all modern lows, and then we bottomed out at 38.
On the sentiment.
Oh, yeah, on the sentiment. So we've got jobs that are going up, but sentiment that's going down. And the question is there going to be something that galvanizes either the jobs to stop going up or the sentiment to inflect and go back up? Because when you're looking at this type of economy, about 70% of the economy is consumer spending.
Yep.
There's two groups, and you guys know, we talked about there's a wealth group that looks at the stock market, and they'll actually spend their balance sheet down if they want to buy something. Then you've got basically middle class and working class that are very subjective to energy costs, et cetera. So we're in this very interesting phase right now where job numbers are good. People think the economy, from the end point, they're hiring, so that means it has to be good. But consumers are still feeling, hey, I don't like this. So this is really relates to politics. Which force is going to win out by November? Because that's really the tale of the midterm elections.
Yeah, what do y'all think? Go ahead.
I was going to say, Sherry, let me jump in here because it's fascinating to me, the psychological dynamic, the onslaught, the constant narrative from the media about the bad economy, going back to 15 months ago when Donald Trump was going to ruin the economy, when the tariffs were going to ruin the economy, when the one big beautiful bill was going to ruin the economy. These national economists have been wrong, and they're continuing to be wrong. The unemployment numbers that came out this morning were the best 3-month stretch in a couple years under Donald Trump. But what really fascinated me as an economist looking at the numbers, May's job creation was heavily driven by what? Leisure and hospitality. Go back just 2 weekends ago, folks. I don't know about you, but I just went on a driving vacation. We had record driving participation this year. People have money and they are spending it,
But
yet it's the psychological.
But Lynn, it's not like they're making it up. I mean, gas prices are out through the roof.
No, I drive an economy car, or at least I bought it to be an economy car. Filling up for 25 bucks I used to do, now I fill up for 40 bucks. And you know, the other thing about this is that, like in my case, I consider fine dining now to be Taco Bell because it costs what it used to cost to go to a lot more expensive restaurant. I think restaurants are one of the things that has hit us the hardest. You know, you talk about the three amigos. There's a different three amigos than the senators, and that's the gentleman we refer to as the buzzer, who hits that whenever we're
Casey
wrong.
Johns,
And Jim and I, we go out, and the three of us eat. It's 70 bucks, you know, and so I think that's what slaps a lot of people in the face. Now, I mean, I dabble a toe in the stock market, and I'm doing well there. But I think it's the inflation, I think it's the real world prices that has those statistics the way they are. And I will say this, I've written 2 columns on this, and that is that if you're looking for an issue for the midterms,
Clearly.
I would not bring up the big, beautiful ballroom. And I would not bring up the slush fund, as they call it, the weaponization fund. I would talk about how we're going to get prices down, assuming we can even do that, because you can't snap your finger and do it. Nixon tried that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no.
whichever
But yeah.
side talks about
No,
how
Nixon-
we're going to get gasoline prices down, how we're, you know, Trump needs to do something to end the war. Not in the war, I'm sorry,
But
I
okay,
misspoke. He needs
now,
to do something to
Lynn,
win
you
the
can't-
war.
Lynn, you can't put your whole agenda out in the first question. You've got midterms, you talked about the
Well, I'm
war.
3
you
ahead.
You haven't given the senators a chance to provide his wisdom on him, and I got a couple of thoughts too.
Okay, with wisdom, all right. You know, I'll talk about anything. I'm just going to talk about, you know, I do love that ballroom though, Lynn. You know, that ballroom's got Greek and Roman columns. It's going to
Yep.
be really good. Okay.
We got to
Now,
name it, though.
No, the problem, I'm not sure. I think I've already named it, but anyway, what you made a point about this. When the people drive, they drive to states that have $5 gas. Okay, so they're going to come back home with that in their memory bank. So the question is how long does that go through the whole summer driving season?
True.
See, because if you're looking at I want to have high gas prices at the start of the summer driving season. The answer is no, you don't want that.
No.
And then there's a finite limit to, you know, how fast you can flip the switch, as you said, because the refiners have already got this high price oil. They're not going to be able to do anything except process it and sell it. And then we're going to get to the fall eventually where they have to switch over to heating oil. Okay, so it's imperative that if there's going to be some downward pressure on gas prices, that it happen now quickly. Otherwise, people are going to come home with less money in their pocketbooks. Of that, there's no doubt. Look, it's affordability, affordability, affordability. If there's realtors out here, they would know it used to be location, location, location. And then the old saying was, it's the economy, stupid, stupid, stupid. And
True.
now it's affordability, affordability, affordability.
Well, you said it, stupid, stupid, stupid. So let's talk about what is happening in California. I want to talk about.
You know, I set this stuff up. We work all night on these scripts. It's really hard to do.
I said you're talking about people driving. We know people are moving from California, but this is the state that has supposed to be the birthplace of our high tech. They're going to be a month counting the votes. Right now, we know our guys. We know Steve Hilton, a Republican. I shouldn't say our guys because we are obviously nonpartisan. I'm a real fan of Steve Hilton. Spencer Pratt are ahead. Not much hope they're going to be ahead after they get through counting the votes. Is that the worst system in the world? And can we fix it with a federal law? Can we say election one day?
Well, first off,
And you've written a lot of election
okay,
bills.
the fundamental problem, besides the fact they got terrible technology and systems that they're using, is they keep the vote open for 7 days to any mail ballot that happens to be postmarked on election
Not
day.
female ballot,
Yeah.
male ballot.
Yeah, mail as in mail in. You know, just go with me, Sherry. Go with me. You know, just stay with me. You know, there's a difference between males and females. We'll get to that later. Okay. Now, so the real problem is that they have this system set up, and and the establishment there, because one of those is a nonpartisan race, it's a race for mayor. They bank on this. See, they stuff the ballot box and they wait, literally, and they're expecting all these votes to come in. So that's why the leftist progressive councilwoman is expecting to get a surge at the end, but I don't think so. I think that Mayor Bass and and your guy, okay, right?
Noticed him.
Right, they're going to make it in the runoff. Now, there's one thing I want to say. There is a national downdraft. You look at all the polling, left coast to west coast, it's the same stuff. Now, there are, however, upwellings of what I would consider to be, I've had enough of this leftist progressive socialism and I can't take it anymore, okay? Now, that happened in Virginia, interestingly, after the governor really forced through that redistricting plan. Yep. Because she forced it against their own laws and lost it at the Supreme Court. Yep. She's actually taken a hit, okay? Now, in California, you've got this, Steve Hilton, sorry, he's tapping into this. I mean, people are really, we spent $25 billion on a train, and there's zero track, okay? They can't get jobs. A lot of people have left. Anybody that makes a certain income level has really left because their marginal tax rate is 55% in California on an IRS and state income tax. It's huge in a bad way.
And they're just getting started.
And right. So with all of this, so we do have a national downdraft, but there are upwellings of I can't take this anymore because look, forget. I don't know the partisanship of everybody in here. You go look at one of my hometowns, which is LA. I live there. I'm a shell brat. I was born in Deer Park. We moved all over the country. Okay. You go look at how bad LA is today, and I don't care whether you're a Republicano, you're a Democrat, traditionalist, you're a leftist, progressive. You'd have to be a socialist to a communist to like what they're doing because they are really messing up there, and they're messing up for their own citizens, and that's why there could be an upset, because in a downdraft nationally, because that's a nonpartisan race, and because people have had enough. Yeah.
But a lot of times they're still voting. We're talking that Graham Plattner is such a great story, the Democrat candidate for the Senate.
Well, you know why? Because he's living in a hotel because his place burned down and they won't let him build a new place. And how long ago was the Palisade fire? What? Yeah. How much? A year and a half? 2? What is it?
Well, yeah, but what do you think, guys? I mean, 40% of the people in Maine in that primary, it's a primary.
Oh, sorry, you're talking about, you're switching to Maine, sorry.
I did switch to Maine. Yeah, you got to think fast.
Okay, fine, I'm with you.
I switched to Maine. 40% of the people in Maine have already voted.
Right.
So if they're just now finding out that Plattner, if the Nazi tattoo was not enough.
The New York Times confirmed it this morning, just as we were getting off the air. It started hitting social media that he knew what the swastika was. He is a Nazi.
Because
he was
some of the girlfriends that he had roughed up.
And then they came out with the girlfriends as well, that he's belligerent, that he had done things and showed up at their apartments when not asked to.
He's got a campaign team that started in Pittsburgh. There's some documentation out on that today. They were running leftist progressives. Their theory was to, in Pittsburgh, run all the traditional Democrats out, moderate liberals, and they were successful. That's his campaign team. Now, they have an incredibly flawed human being that they're running in Maine.
Absolutely.
Now, Maine, however, is incredibly, leftist at this point, and a very unique place. But and this is all Democrat versus Democrat fight, because if the Republicans had all this info, they would have waited. Okay, there's a concerted effort to try to get that guy out of that race before he sinks them, because they think they've got a shot at 6 seats. But if they lose Maine, they've got no shot.
So what are we missing, Lynn? We're talking about California. What winners and losers are we missing for the week on your list?
As far as California?
Well, as far as the world.
Well,
California
I think
and the world.
Well, in the world, okay.
And incredibly flawed human beings.
The list in California of losers is a lot longer.
You mentioned incredibly flawed human beings, and I know Jim's doing that right now to point at me, but we do have one of those in Texas named James Tallarico, and it just keeps coming. I'm going to make him my biggest loser of the day. And the reason is he went on MS Now and he was asked a question. And then later in the same week, Tallarico went on CBS News and he was asked the same question. Well, some guy out in the internet universe took the MS Now answer and the CBS Now and merged them electronically, and his answer was word for word.
Anybody seen that?
The
out
same?
there?
The same?
Exactly
it's
the same.
robotic.
Word for word, it was robotic. This guy is a manufactured candidate, and he's my loser of the day.
Well, does anybody here go to St. Andrew's Church here in Austin? Because his preacher, that's where James Tellerico goes to church, and his preacher asked recently in a sermon, you're going to hate this, they asked him, he asked the congregation to just shout out their impressions of St. Paul. So what they shouted out was villain, homophobic.
What?
He's a jerk. So that's the
I don't think
Christianity.
that was a Catholic St. Andrews. I'm not really sure.
Well, let me ask you, let me ask you, Paul, because even yesterday I'm driving home and listening to Sean Hannity on Talk 1370.
Because this guy is true red.
And yeah, and he's asking who, he can't find out Tallarico's definition of the 6 sexes. He says, somebody out there, I guess I'm just going to have to put the call out across America. If anybody out there knows Tallarico's definition of the 6 sexes, call in. I'm looking at it quite optimistically, to be honest with you, whether it's Maine or California or here in Texas. As you said, we're just getting started. There's going to be a summer of vacations, and then kids are going to go back to school, and then we have the campaign. The education of the American people, which we already know, they're familiar with any number of things, but when they start getting educated about these crazy ideas, these flawed candidates, the potential of packing the Supreme Court, which Hakeem Jeffries and everybody has been saying, here in Texas, we may or may not have liked how the Senate primary came out, but what I took out of that Senate primary was that the core voters are energized. They got out and they were participating in the runoff. Again, despite who you wanted to win, I think the American voter by the end of the day in November is going to be very energized, not to mention Donald Trump being out there, to take America back still. I'm wondering if you, in your polling information, see something similar.
Well, okay, first of the Cal Street prediction market has, let's see, Paxton up 58% and change.
Exactly.
Right, now, however, the polling is still showing
The
more about
mainstream
44.
polling is even.
Now, Jim, the reality is that up through May, there was a 20-point gap between enthusiasm for Democrat voters to vote versus Republicans in the Democrats' favor.
Okay.
So there is a stronger, more activated vote, pressure there than there is on the Republican side. Now, for James Tallarico, I posted this. This is on my Facebook. You can go see it at paulbettencourt.com or vote Bettencourt. I'm not on the ballot, by the way.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. But I posted his comments about, he said the election in Texas was already rigged and that we're going to have to win by more than that we've been rigged. Gee, that sounds like somebody I know. I can't remember.
They are so good.
Okay, and so he's out there, Lynn, saying that, and then he said there's voter suppression everywhere in the state. Oh, great. So I posted back, and and I've got like 250,000 views on this.
It was a long post.
Yeah, it was a long
post.
post. Well, because I'm saying, okay.
Surprise.
So tell me, is it the Democrat elections appointed administrator in Travis County suppressing the votes by changing the polling places in Travis County? Oh, maybe it's Tanisha Hudspeth in Harris County, who has basically suppressed the vote of Democrats in that county. Which one is it, James? Give us your evidence. And I put in text ledge, and I don't have any evidence after pounding that to 250,000 people in the state.
Well, see, Senator, you're thinking you're like my partner, you're thinking too logically. They don't let the facts get in the way of a good message. They know they're full of it.
But
And they're going to repeat that claim.
right,
And
but
the media is going to repeat it.
and I also copied the entire media in the state on it, because the moment we have that debate, I'm
Yep.
going to pop back up and say, show me the evidence. And oh, is it the county clerks in the valley or the ones on I-35? Oh, how about, is it Dallas or El Paso? Williamson County? Tell me who is suppressing whom.
And now Ken Paxton's going to be asked the question about, Senator, do you think there's suppression?
Well, he was already
he's
on the Three Amigos radio show, which I have to mention is KCD 700 AM, but there's really a good place. And we rebroadcast these two fine gentlemen. They're
Yes,
wonderful talk show
yes,
hosts.
thank you.
They're beautiful guys. Well, maybe less so, I don't know. They're not huge,
Trying
that's
to keep
good.
up with you.
But, we did have a really good week in Texas. The Bluebonnet curriculum, which you worked hard on, which TPPF worked very hard on. All we got was bad press. All we got was
Literally.
bad press. We're just trying to put the Bible in public schools. This week, they cannot ignore it. The teachers are coming out all over the state saying, hey, this stuff raises the test scores by 10 or 15 points. So that's good.
Because you're teaching content again.
Right, and I'm going to throw this to you, Lynn, but I've got these other things that have happened, and our Attorney General makes sure our commercial driver's license, the tests are only in English. That seems like a great idea to
big
me.
deal.
Ted Cruz came out with a sports bill, but we do have the screw worm. So over to you, Lynn.
Let me go back to that former. I do want to mention something that hasn't been overstated, and that is that the Cardle and Woolley show is 7 to 10 each morning on Talk 1370. And Jim lets me get a word in occasionally.
This is true.
What was the question? Was about the
Well,
screw
wait a
worm?
minute. Now,
No.
by the way, the seating arrangements here, I said, where do y'all want to sit? He goes, we see each other every morning and look at each other. They wanted to look at Sherry and I. And I said,
No, we wanted to look at Sherry. Actually, what it is.
then that will cost you later. I don't know.
I'll throw one in. Speaking of media, which the Three Amigos and the Cardle and Woolley show and all that is, there's been another big media story, and that was
yes.
a little staff meeting that they had at 60 Minutes.
Oh, I love that.
And Scott Pelley decided that he would lecture his boss. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't, but the boss
Sometimes
is,
you're fired.
I've heard that line too.
Okay, that's right.
I commented this morning on our show that what Barry Weiss did with the CBS Evening News is a huge improvement, I think. You could go through it and you could nitpick all the way they wrote every story, but before, CBS News was a train wreck at 5:30. It's now on a par with David Muir and Tom Yamas over at NBC, and they've got Tony DeCopel, and they're doing it. It looks pretty good. Well, I don't know what she's going to do with 60 Minutes, but Scott Pelley did not want anything to be changed.
She's got Anderson Cooper to fill in.
Anderson Cooper's gone from 60 Minutes, and now Scott Pelley is gone. He and I got our pedigree at the same place, WFAA in Dallas, and I know they put out good people, and Pelley's competent, but he's not the boss, and she's going to go in and modernize things. So we'll see what we see. I think the other thing is News Nation, which is trying to be more down the center.
Yeah, I was going to make that point that Scott Pelley, in case y'all didn't know, is a Texan. And if you want a story that I find really offensive, a few years ago, they do these, like the Texas Oscars, they do these Texas awards. It's a big thing here.
Right
It's
down
mostly lefties.
Yep.
But Pelley was there, and I was there with the lieutenant governor. And I went to Pelley, because he's one of the awardees, and of course, and I said, would you like to meet the lieutenant governor? And he was not interested in talking to
You've
the
got to be
lieutenant.
kidding.
So this is who's Scott Pelley.
That does not surprise me at all.
I
What
mean,
an
so-
arrogant jerk, pardon my
Arrogant.
French. He looked in the mirror and he knew he was going to a new boss. And this is it. Senator, I'll get your opinion. These media people do not understand why their
And you were one of the
ranking
best people working
is
with.
lower than politicians.
I just love Dan Patrick. He's one of my religious guys I've ever told you. He runs that commission. He's a great guy. This other guy must be a loser. I mean, anybody that doesn't recognize any lieutenant governor
Okay, Senator,
in this
let me ask
country,
you
he's
this.
an idiot.
Is
He's
the
a
media,
loser.
is the media realignment that's going on not a glorious thing when you see some of these individuals.
Well, it is, because look, Lynn made a point. I'm looking at Susan Pistaro out there. We long for the day that we go back to, and that's the way it is.
Walter
June
Cronkite,
5th, 2026. This is Walter Cronkite saying good night.
That's what you're getting here.
Right, then that's what you're getting here. But we long for that because that was when you started, Lynn.
Yep.
And that was that you could count on more of that than not, which is here, go get the straight story and then make your own opinion. There is a clear media alignment. And by the way, I've invited Sherry and Jim on. And Lynn blew it. He could have said yes, but
He's a busy man.
He's a busy man. So they're going to be on my show, which is the Three Amigos today.
420, 520.
700 AM streaming at kscvradio.com.
Cardle and Woolley show, 7 to 10.
No. Only when you have me back. We're promoting them on my show this time. Now get your hands off my promo.
Media
Okay.
consumption, though.
Now,
You're right.
No, but look, here's the real problem, okay? And I just want to make sure. This is a problem, okay? All right? It's a problem with your kids. It's a problem with everybody in society. You rip through this to scroll, okay? How many people scroll like this?
Probably scrolling now.
Right, they're scrolling right now. Because I'm boring them by talking about scrolling. Now look, this is a problem. And the kids, one of the reasons why we ban cell phones in schools is so they
Yay.
would start talking to people again, kids. And so when you go into a lunchroom, you used to walk in and it was silence because everybody was worried about what people were saying about them on social media.
So true.
And now they get to talk to each other. And Uncle Paul's about ready to file a bill that says we should get 16-year-olds or younger off of social media.
Or you are.
Because, absolutely. I mean, listen, this is a battle that we have to win. And look, and again, I'm appealing to everybody on partisanship, okay? I don't care look, for this argument, I don't care what you look like, who you sleep with, where you're from. This has to stop. And there was a great, study that came out that said, when you turn this off, there was a guy that was teaching his class. Only half the kids stood for the pledge in the morning. He said, why? And so he started talking, they don't know anything. So he said, all right, turn all this off and let's talk about Normandy. Let's talk about all this history.
Yeah.
And they were like, wow, we just didn't know any of this.
And
Because why are you going to stand for America if you don't know what it stands for? Because all you get is very negative headlines,
Yep.
and that's part of what the downdraft on consumer sentiment is. No question about it.
And we know that we've seen in Dallas schools that when we instituted the cell phone ban, which of course is zoomed through the Senate, came out of the Senate, that
Everything zooms, all conservative stuff zooms through the Senate. Did I tell you my good friend Dan Patrick, he's the best lieutenant governor in the country? Go ahead, sir.
I would agree. I certainly would agree with you there. But library books increased like 200,000 more library books after the cell phone ban.
Sherry, can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
With something, because you're talking about the kids and education, and another thing that we've talked about here in the last week, it pertains to Austin, and that is the $181 million budget deficit that our Austin ISD has. They've been talking about eliminating 565 jobs and potential state takeover. And the reason I want to bring it up, Sherry, is because a lot of people don't realize there are probably a dozen ISDs in the state that have been taken over for lack of academic performance, board malfeasance,
Corruption.
one of which is your area, HISD. Talk about for a minute, if we could, about Austin ISD to the extent you know it, but just for people to understand that the state is doing remarkable things over at the TEA to help save our kids.
I think the tipping point on Austin ISD was when they taxed all of their taxpayers, went above Robin Hood.
Yep.
And there was like 10 former trustees, again,
Yes.
mostly people of Democrat Party background, that begged them not to do it.
Yep.
Because 73% of the money ended up back in the state coffers, and only 27%, Susan, went to the office. And that was the tipping point, because at that point in time, that meant that that board had lost all rational perspective of what they're there for. Now, in HISD, we had, I don't know.
The fourth largest school district in America, right?
We had 50, 60 failing schools. You know, the place was headed to oblivion. We had a corrupt board that was under investigation. We had one
Self-dealing.
trustee that ended up under federal charges and actually doing federal time on contract fraud. It was horrible, okay? Now, so where you see these takeovers, you have to think these are massive collections of D and F schools.
Massive.
And and under this current, and the curve is good, but there's a little bit of a grading curve here. So when you see a lot of D and F schools on these reports, it's really in trouble. Now, I will tell you,
I'm ignorant. DNS.
Well, DNF, sorry, A through B, A, B, C, D, F.
Right. Grades.
It took us.
Gotcha.
We passed that bill originally. That was. Larry Taylor and
5
Dan
sessions
Huberty.
ago, 10
and then I
years.
took over having to get it back to where we could release
Because the teachers' unions did not want the schools to be
Exactly.
graded.
There was-
We just take this for granted. That was a huge
Exactly.
war.
There
It was like a
30
3-session war. Sorry.
it. 3-session war, thank you, Cherry. There was 3-session war, Kingsville ISD being the ringleader, and guess what they're rated? F,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
And they fought keeping those numbers out.
They
Lawsuits.
said we were racist.
Right, yeah, right.
course.
Because they have an F, and they were, and look, and the problem, I got in this when Wheatley High School and Kashmir High School had years, maybe 10 years of being on the improvements required list, meant they failed.
It's criminal.
So
to these
that meant
kids.
that 3 cohorts of kids, 4 years.
Their lives lost.
And one school didn't even have a certified math teacher. Now,
Oh, for Pete's sake.
no, it's the truth. So you have to have transparency. You've got to have public accountability. And Brad Buckley and I have fought like crazy, and we finally passed that last bill that brings public accountability back. Also prevents people from using taxpayer money to sue to stop the accountability process. Allows them to challenge rules. And that was a huge fight.
That
And-
deserves a round of applause,
Well-
ladies and gentlemen, to be honest with you. Senator.
Well, because
Thank
you don't have a school system if you don't have a public accountability system. You know, because how do parents, anybody know what's going on in their school?
Yeah, Lynn, move us on. You're a big accountability guy. You're always
Oh,
demanding
yes.
accountability and transparency. What's on your list now?
Well, getting to the winner and loser theme, I put a loser, I have 3 of them,
Okay, let's hear it.
all on the same topic. The United States House, Representative Ro Khanna, a Democrat from California,
Oh, yeah.
and Mark Kelly, a Democratic senator from Arizona,
Arizona.
all of whom are on the side of Iran. Now, you can like the war or you can not like the war, but when Ro Khanna goes on national television and says, we're losing, we need to end the war now, what do you think the Ayatollahs are taking from that? What do you think the Ayatollahs are taking when the House passes a resolution to end the war? What do you think the Ayatollahs are thinking when Mark Kelly says, we've used up all our weapons? We couldn't fight Russia right now if we had to, or if China invaded Taiwan. They're losers, and if you don't like that Trump did the war, fine, but Obama wasn't going to do it, and Bush wasn't going to do it, and nobody was going to do it, and it had to be done at some point.
And as losers as that is, the big loser is that Democrat nominee in New Jersey, okay?
Yes.
Is that who testified for the blind sheik after knowing
Yes, that's right.
after knowing that the guy killed 6 people, okay, and went in and testified, and it is now scaring the Democrat Party so bad. Fetterman called him out, 2 or 3 other people called him out, because this is somebody that decided that they were around somebody that was talking about jihad all the time, but that had murderous intent, okay, and they knew it. And now this guy is trying to rewash himself, and it is concerning the Democrats in New Jersey. And you've got people in Connecticut and around Pennsylvania saying, we don't like this guy, we're not supporting him.
Yep.
Of course, now AOC, I just wait for AOC. She never says anything bad about Democrats. I'm waiting for her to tell the truth about one.
Sherry, does anybody realize that the Iranian government and the way their system is, it's a death cult?
It is.
It's a death cult, and they chant death to the little Satan, which is Israel, and death to the great Satan, which is us. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they are going to bring around the end of the world and bring back the 12th Imam.
Yeah,
And
watch
you know
this.
where I first heard that from? Chuck DeVore. That's it.
Let's watch this space. We are really looking at the Islamification of Texas and
Absolutely.
the U.S. We're doing a lot of work around that.
Very much
but
so.
Watch this space. But you know, the stupidest thing that came out this week along that same line, Lynn, was, did you see that in San Francisco, they are arguing that Americans are so transphobic and homophobic that it isn't safe to play the World Cup there.
Yes.
So they have put these safe houses up.
Wait a minute, I got to figure this out.
For gay people in San Francisco. Now keep in mind, they played the World Cup a couple of years ago in Qatar, where they kill you for being gay.
Yes.
And they're in San Francisco, where practically everybody is gay. So it's I mean,
Yeah, that kind of blew my head off. I'm not even.
it's just really amazing.
Sherry, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but there's a new Gallup poll. The LGBTQ ideology is going backward, and in a very big way. Support for same-sex marriage is still up there, but it has dropped 6 points from where it was at 65%. Gender transition is down to just 38% of Americans believe you can change your gender, and 57% view it as morally wrong, and that's kind of the first time
well,
I've seen
it's
a
This is what
trend
I'm
like
talking
that.
about, y'all. The movement out there is beginning an underfoot that could be tapped into out there.
$100 million is what Tom Steyer spent to come in third place. Nobody thinks Steyer is going to win. We don't know who's going to win.
No, he's
for
not.
governor of California. $100 million, and last week he was standing up with a trans athlete, that boy
Yes.
that swept the track and field
Saying, go out there and
in
win.
California, saying that he was behind them. So you can't buy your way out of that.
I want to say this. We, and I say specifically Senator Lois Colcourse, tried to blaze this trail as far back as 2017.
Good horn frog.
Right, a good horn frog athletic person,
Golfer,
actually was well in the golf
absolutely.
team. And when she brought this up, all the national organizations, all the sports organizations said, "Oh, this will never happen. This will not happen. Okay, we're not going to have men and women's sports." Okay, and she had death threats back then when she promoted a bill that just, absolutely, that said you just don't have men and women's sports. Now, she ended up not being the author of the final bill. I forget, we had to pass it so many times. I think it was Perry, but this has been a battle that's been brewing for a long time. And sometimes when you recognize the obvious, there is no fact, no supposition of fact, no rational thought,
Yep.
no anything that can explain why you're going to let a male into women's sports that has a 20 to 50% muscular or reflex advantage, and depending upon what sport you're in. Why have women's sports? And
Government imposed Title IX women's sports, no
Now,
less.
And this was one of the big reasons why the Trumpster did so well in 2024,
Absolutely.
because especially in the Hispanic community, the men in the Hispanic community can't stand this because it is totally irrational to them. And I hope that people like Snyder's keep grabbing onto this idea that somehow there's a lifeline there, because the American public has rightly rejected it and are going to continue to reject it, because there's nothing truthful about
Nothing.
putting a male into a volleyball game and have him do a serve, do him a spike at 110 miles an hour and concussing a gal on the other side.
I'll never
They're
forget
just-
it.
they're just-
The
go
lady
ahead, Jim.
who won the gold medal in the 100-yard dash last time would finish 300th in the men's 100-yard dash.
Well, the canary in the coal mine on this was decades ago. A man named Richard Raskin, I just wrote that down, pulled it out of my head, couldn't win on the men's tour of tennis, so he changed
Switched
his
over.
name to Renee Richards,
Yeah, right.
and couldn't
That's
even
right.
beat the women. But we should have learned then that this was coming, and of course, the pride of Westlake High, Leah Thomas, couldn't win very many
Well, and-
swimming matches as a male either.
And the good news for us is that the Democrats haven't won it. I mean, they put out that crazy autopsy, which showed that,
point.
This was
you
a
know,
big problem.
Yes, she's for
Yep.
they, them, he's for us. And yet, just this week, again, trying to keep on my losers list, the Democrats voted down a new women's museum on the mall because the Republicans said it could only include biological women. So we are not going to have a women's
You mean
museum.
could only include women?
Women. So I don't know that we need.
You know, we love women. We do love women. That's important.
We can't do without them.
I'm a big fan, but you know, so what do we think? Maybe before we move that, we should acknowledge that the University of Texas women won the World Series, softball World Series.
Yes, let's give them a big, yeah, that's right.
2 times in a row.
And you know, we knew the winner was going to be from Texas because their final game was with Texas Tech. So
Right.
their final so that was good.
I challenge anybody to be
can,
able to hit women's fast pitch softball.
Literally.
Whoa.
Since we're on the topic of sports, I have a winner of Nick Saban.
Oh, yes.
Preach.
Yeah, Nick Saban goes before Congress and he says, you know, if you've,
Cruz's
what
bill.
did he
Let
say?
me
If you
interrupt you. It was
if-
Texas Senator Ted Cruz.
Set the deal.
If you had the biggest, baddest Ferrari that you could ever have going 150 miles an hour toward the Grand Canyon, somebody might need to tap the brakes. And right now we can have a college football player do very well all 4 years of his eligibility at 4 different colleges. And I'll never forget when the University of Texas was having its thing about the Eyes of Texas being an old minstrel song, and the band refused to play the Eyes of Texas.
Tried to
And
get
Sam
rid of it.
Ellinger went right over to that corner after the game, held up his hook'em horns, and sang the school song. That's what I want at UT. I want kids that want to be a Longhorn or an A&M, want to be an Aggie, and get a check. I don't mind paying these kids. $6 million in college is a little much.
You know
and that
anything
is-
about higher
That is a
ed?
winner for the week, just so we know, and keeping our Texas people in. This was Ted Cruz held
Yep.
hearing on the Protect Texas college sports this week, working under the direct direction of President Trump, who said, "Fix it." You know, so.
Paul, where do we go on higher education,
and-
college, payment, sports, and
And
I
TPPF
know.
has been.
Nothing. Well, I got to watch the
TPPF has
hearing.
worked on this a lot too.
All right. Okay. So, look, you've got to get a balance back into this because there was consternation on the floor of the Senate. We almost dumped a bill that, that Senator Creighton was carrying on this because we were worried about the age limit, because at the time, and so we actually modified it that said, you've got to at least be 18. You have to be an adult, Lynn, if you're going to participate in the economy, on the upside of it. I didn't want people chasing 16-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 12-year-olds for a contract, so we managed to get that in, and actually we voted that bill down until we got that amendment. So there's been worry about this for some time. And you know, look, you've got private property rights here. These athletes do own their image. They are themselves they can sell whatever they want to sell.
on a college scholarship?
Well, but that's what you have to decide because you've got the state paying you to come.
Yes.
So why are you there? And then the idea that you go just hop, skip, and jump constantly, because this has become effectively free agency on steroids.
Steroids.
Right. And people are worried that if we don't compete, I can't compete because I can't get the free agent on steroids that I need to be able to win.
Well,
to
but
go
wait
to
a
the
minute.
national
Does it come down
championship.
to which school, and I know the Longhorns would be right at the top of the heap, has the most very rich alumni that are willing to put up all this money?
Exactly. One of the things that was said at the hearing is if we don't if we don't do something about this, every year we'll just watch Alabama and Texas play for the championship. And
Well,
so we've got to
Maybe
fix it.
Georgia.
My cousin is still alive who played at Oklahoma. He was a starting guard on one of the teams in the 60s. What you have to worry about is what he saw that he was there. Back then it was kind of Mickey Mouse fraud, but they would literally go out and pick up their plates and there would be X amount of $100 bills on there from the big, powerful, because they wanted to pay them, in this case, above the table, even though it was really above the table. So,
So
we have work to do on this issue because you want college sports to stay at least 1 foot in the amateur world.
Amen.
We do. We went and cut down the portal.
And speaking of the clock, I think we're
Well, we've got to.
at
Do
the
you all
2-minute
have?
warning.
We are.
Can I do one question, then have me answer myself?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Start us
You
off.
so you brought your own questions,
We got
but you
that.
all
All
prepare
right,
your questions.
prepare your questions, but here's mine. Sherry, would you ask me what affordability bills did the Texas Senate
Oh,
pass
great.
ahead of the affordability crisis in the
Great
last
question.
session?
Senator, what affordability bills did you pass in the Texas Senate?
You'll be happy to know all of these ran through my committee, but okay, not counting finance.
Take notes.
Right, take notes. The $140,000 residence homestead exemption, the 60 additional resident homestead exemption for over 65 people. That side of the table, not
Yes,
this.
yes.
We did cut municipal lot sizes down to 15. In Senate Bill 15 to 3,000, so we could have, if you have greenfield, you can build or combine it. Senator Hughes had a great bill that allowed multi-family residential to be built in areas zoned commercial. It contains exceptions for industrial. We increased the notice periods and transparency requirements for cities because they were doing impact schedules and basically prohibiting cities from, raising fees, but also they were just stopping development. We allowed commercial buildings be converted, I love this, into multifamily because we've got all these generational ships out there. You walk past them, they're called office buildings.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the occupancy they used to have, so why not cut through the red tape, regardless of what Austin City Council says,
Yep.
and let them convert them to lofts. Representative Gates, we busted what was a corrupt outfit called Housing Affordability Corporations. So Representative Orr, tyrant's veto, where people were blocked from being able to build apartments because one person somewhere in the city said no. We also did something which I think was really good. We rebalanced the fact that we had people that were simply no longer paying their rents, okay, and claiming that it was actually, they had some consent. You have to get rid of squatters, and we had a huge squatting problem because we had terrible laws that would allow one homeowner, and I'm going from memory, Terry Boyette in Mesquite, Texas, who was locked out of her home. She went to Florida, she'd help her mom. A guy came in and squatted. The PD there wouldn't throw the person out. He sold her personal belongings on her lawn for pennies on the dollar,
Lord.
ripped all the copper out of the place, did $140,000 worth of damage, and you'll love it, a leftist progressive JP said, I think that I'm not going to give back that home to the owner because where will the squatter be for the holidays?
Pete's sakes.
I'm not making any of this up, and said, I'm going to let the squatter stay through the holidays because they could be out on the street. And the homeowner couldn't even get back in. So we passed a huge anti-squatter. But this is the Texas Senate with our colleagues at the House roaring through affordability long before it became a crisis.
Increasing supply
That
so
because-
that prices go down.
Because
in
what's wrong
housing.
with California?
Yeah.
California, they don't have 1 million homes.
Or is it this one?
Well, it's this way. It could be this way or this
Okay.
way, depending upon if it's up or down.
Okay. So, one of the things that we should do every morning when we do our prayers is thank God that Senator Bettencourt is in the Texas Senate and is providing all the service to Texas. So,
Thank you. I hope I've been mildly entertaining.
Yes.
let's see.
If not, I know nothing because I hear nothing.
So we have come up with our list. We've got a few minutes here. Do you have questions that you would like to ask people of panel? Clint has the microphone. So we're over here.
Hi, I'd like to nominate my own loser, and it leads into a two-part question. My loser for the last few weeks is all the pollsters from the Senate runoff election. Paxton winning by 28 points is not just, oh, well, we undersampled rural whites. It's a 2 to 3 standard deviation variance, which suggests that the underlying electorate and turnout models that the pollsters used were fundamentally wrong. And so my two-part question is, how wrong are the electorate and turnout models being used for the general election polls, and which candidate would this benefit?
Well, you know,
Yeah.
I'm never wrong when I make an endorsement. That's why those polls were huge off, because I won huge. Now, here's the true story with this. The Paxton numbers were probably single digits in his favor. That was what was actually happening until Tuesday night, when the Trump endorsement turbocharged that into the stratosphere. But you make a great point about the fall. And I'll say this, there's been underreporting, because actually Senator Cornyn was not supposed to have led in the first part, because the poll said he wasn't going to lead, but he did lead by 1 point.
And he won it.
And he won it. There was actually a great case in the Tallarico versus Jasmine Crockett, where people were polling the Democrat leftist progressive voters, okay, and even lots of Afro-Americans in Harris County, and they were saying, I'm voting for Jasmine Crockett. And when they went to the polls, she almost lost the county. She only got 51%.
Really?
So polling has now many complexities. And Sherry can go into some of the details, because TPPF's involved in all this. That modern polling has to be backed up with, are you watching social media? Are you looking at the trends? What are people talking about? If you get somebody on a landline, well, that's gold. That's gold.
Oh
but,
my gosh,
but
yes.
There's so many complexities to it. So now, and I will say this, Harry 10 on CNN actually does a pretty good job of entertaining people, talking about some of these polling. His data is good. He does have a slant, but he's also humorous about it, so it's well worth watching. But this is not your grandmother, grandfather, or either your mom and dad's polling anymore. It's completely different. So there will be surprises in the November election. Uncle Paul has predicted it. It will come true.
And TPPF looks at a lot of the most cutting edge strategies in able to measure what public's actually thinking. I mean, we were told for years that people supported school choice, but that they wouldn't vote on school choice, and guess what? We finally figured out how that was going to happen. Who's got a question? Yes, sir.
Steve.
Question for Williamson County. We're currently in a situation right now where we do not have a medical examiner. The law states has been changed, saying that 2.5 million is the cutoff to have a medical examiner. However, throughout the United States, it's usually about 500,000. So our JPs are going crazy trying to get these taken care of, and we're just trying to see if possible Uncle Paul or would be able to help us out with changing the law.
Uncle Paul, he's a great guy.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
he's like Dan's friend. He's really a great guy.
Exactly.
And I happen to know Uncle Paul's got some smart staff right over here. So now, on a serious point, come check with my local government committee staff. They're right over here. That's David and Ross, the director and co-director, whatever the other guy's title is.
Because no medical examiner, how did they determine death?
They
If you're
have to
not
have the
breathing,
JPs go
you're
out,
usually-
and the JPs basically.
It gets because how many JPs you have?
We only have 4 JPs for the entire county.
We have 16 in Harris County,
Right.
so you can imagine how complicated that would get.
It's really difficult.
We can do maybe one or two more
and
questions. And
one-
remember, that we've got the voice of logic over here and his sidekick, so.
One last quick plug. I'm actually helping with the Texas Alliance for Life on the Walk for Life. If anybody would like some help with that, please let me know.
Okay.
Right.
Anybody else questions? There's a guy in the middle here and some people over here.
We'll have to let one of the ladies. She's a candidate.
Senator Bettencourt, thank you for your leadership on education and property tax. I am Dr. Jennifer Muschthaler. I'm the candidate for House District 47, and what I'm hearing a lot of, I've got 7 independent school districts in House District 47. So a lot of the concern is, how are we going to, in the next ledge cycle, bring forward and continue to fund adequately our public schools with the voucher system coming in, and how can these complement each other while we're still trying to provide property tax relief? Because I'm in the city of Austin.
Yes, and you need property tax relief.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, let me first off say complementarily. I mean, if both these things were done all together in the same streams. The property tax relief is from the excess from effectively from the sales side of revenue equation. So we're paying that. You don't touch it. You don't pay anything. Now, out of the money we put into public education, I think we put in $8 billion, okay? And that was that counting the billion or not for the vouchers? Right. So we put $8 billion in last session. Now the big chunk of that was the teacher incentive allotment and all sorts
So
of other.
$8 billion compared to $1 billion for vouchers.
Right. Yeah. So it's 8 to 1. So first off, so anybody that says vouchers are draining, it's not true. They're fully funded, and there's $8 billion more that went into public education at the same time, and all the property tax relief that any bill that's ever got Lieutenant Governor Patrick's sponsorship or my name on it, no one pays for it as a taxpayer. So you have to, well, also see them because they happen to know a lot about that issue too. And this is part of what the problem we've got is once these narratives start, as people scroll, oh, that we're not funding public education. Oh, we just put $8 billion in there. Oh, we're not, the vouchers are going to destroy public education. Well, we just fully funded $1 billion.
It's about tripled since Rick Perry started being governor.
Right, and so.
Which ought to be embarrassing in some.
Well, but so I understand the problem, okay? And we've got the real data to help you.
Can I ask Sherry, we got our #1 caller to the Talk
We've got
1370 show.
30 seconds.
Stephen, jump in real quick.
I kind of see the funding of the schools as taking the sting out of the rebuke for the failure of our schools. Aren't you paying them for failure and then subsidizing people who want to escape the failure?
Okay, we need to come on his show, your show, so I can answer that question because it's actually a kind of a fascinating, debate.
Talk about it after.
Right, and I'd be happy to do that because
right.
because I'm going to welcome you at 5:20 on KSCV 700 AM.
Sherry
and
Tor.
Sherry, of course, because she is our host and a gracious one. Would you give her a big hand? Okay.
And then, Senator, we'll be happy to have you on the Cardle and Woolley show, which is 7 to 10 each morning on Talk 1370.
I never get up that early.
So we've got, thank you. Thank you all so much for coming. Thanks to everybody at TPPF who helped us produce this second edition of Winners and Losers Live.
Thank you all.
You couldn't see that.